The Imperium of Man is an empire of rigid dogma and unyielding laws, where tradition is sacrosanct and innovation is viewed with suspicion. In this vast, crumbling colossus, where humanity clings to survival amidst threats from within and without, one institution holds dominion over the sacred knowledge of technology, the Adeptus Mechanicus. To the followers of the machine god, the past is not a relic to be built upon, but a holy scripture to be recited without deviation. Every cogitator, every weapon, every towering war machine is a relic of a bygone age, maintained with reverence but never truly understood. For millennia, the Adeptus Mechanicus has operated under the ironclad strictures of the cult Mechanicus. Innovation is heresy, deviation is blasphemy, and the pursuit of knowledge beyond what is sanctioned is punishable by death. Yet within this rigid order, there exists a paradox, an individual who embodies both its greatest strengths and its most dangerous contradictions, a figure whose intellect and ambition defy the very foundation of the institution he serves. That figure is Belisarius Cawl, a being more ancient than most records can confirm. Cawl has walked the corridors of history for longer than any mortal should. He has witnessed the rise and fall of Imperium's great champions, survived the darkest epochs of mankind, and been instrumental in shaping its future in ways few can comprehend. His name is both revered and whispered in fear, for he stands apart from the machine-worshipping masses of the Mechanicus. Where others kneel before the wisdom of the ancients, he dares to question. Where others fear change, he embraces it. And where others obey without question, he schemes in the shadows, manipulating events on a scale beyond human comprehension. Yet despite his heretical tendencies, he remains protected. His existence is sanctioned not by the priests of Mars, but by a power even greater, the will of the Lord Commander of the Imperium himself. Robut Guilliman, the resurrected Primarch of the Ultramarines, has given Cawl a license few others could dream of, the freedom to act outside the rigid doctrines of the Mechanicus. It was Cawl who played a pivotal role in the resurrection of Guilliman, Cawl who engineered the Primaris Space Marines, and Cawl who possesses knowledge that even the most revered magi of Mars cannot fathom. But to understand Belisarius Cawl is not merely to study a tech priest of extraordinary intellect. It is to confront the very question of what knowledge means in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. Is he a savior or a heretic, a loyal servant of the Imperium, or a force that will one day unravel it? His creations have reshaped the galaxy, but his true motives remain shrouded in mystery. What drives him? What secrets does he keep? And how far is he willing to go in pursuit of his vision for mankind? This is the story of the tech priest who breaks every law. The unfolding saga of Belisarius Cawl involves multiple factions and individuals, each playing a crucial role in shaping the events surrounding his existence and influence. Some view him as a necessary force for the Imperium's survival, while others see him as an abomination who violates the very foundation of their beliefs. Each of these players has their own motivations, goals, and reasons for being entangled in his story. At the heart of it all is the Adeptus Mechanicus, the vast priesthood of Mars that claims dominion over all technological knowledge within the Imperium. Its members revere the Omnissiah, a deity they equate with the highest form of machine intellect. The Mechanicus enforces a rigid hierarchy, with its tech priests and magi dedicated to maintaining the ancient technologies passed down from long-forgotten eras. While they are responsible for producing and maintaining the Imperium's most vital war machines, they operate as a separate entity from the wider Imperium, following their own doctrines. Many within this order view Cawl with suspicion, for he does not conform to their traditions, and his vast knowledge surpasses what even the highest-ranking members of the cult Mechanicus should possess. The Fabricator General of Mars is the highest authority within the Adeptus Mechanicus and the singular leader of the order. Holding immense political and technological power, this figure dictates the policies of the Mechanicus, enforces strict adherence to its beliefs, and determines what knowledge is permissible. The Fabricator General has a vested interest in Cawl's actions, as his influence stretches far beyond what should be allowed. Whether this authority views him as an asset or a threat remains uncertain, but his existence undeniably disrupts the established hierarchy. The Collegia Titanica is another significant faction tied to the Mechanicus. Composed of the towering god machines known as Titans and the princeps who control them, they serve as the Mechanicus's ultimate expression of military might. Their loyalty to Mars is unwavering, yet even among their ranks, there are those who question Cawl's deviations from doctrine. While the Titans themselves are machines of war, the tech priests who oversee them are bound to the same traditions that Cawl so frequently challenges. Beyond Mars, the Imperium's highest governing authority is the Adeptus Terra, an immense bureaucratic entity that controls the administration of mankind's vast empire. This organization ensures that the Imperium's decrees are enforced, its planetary tithes are collected, and its laws are upheld. While the Adeptus Terra is primarily concerned with maintaining the Emperor's rule, certain elements within its leadership recognize that figures like Cawl hold knowledge that could reshape the Imperium in ways they cannot control. The Adeptus Astartes, the superhuman warriors of the Imperium, also have a stake in Cawl's works. While they are known for their battlefield prowess, their continued survival relies on the advancements in warfare and gene forging, areas where Cawl has made his most controversial contributions. Though some chapters benefit from his creations, others harbor deep distrust toward him, wary of how his innovations might alter their very nature. The Inquisition, the Imperium's secretive and all-powerful organization dedicated to rooting out heresy, is another force that has taken notice of Cawl. The Inquisitors have the authority to judge anyone, regardless of rank, and they possess the means to erase entire worlds if deemed necessary. Some within their ranks view Cawl as a potential savior, while others see him as a dangerous anomaly who operates outside the accepted boundaries of knowledge. A force often intertwined with the Mechanicus is the Skitarii, the cybernetic legions that serve as the foot soldiers of Mars. Enhanced with bionics and controlled by their tech priest masters, they are the Mechanicus's answer to conventional armies. Though utterly loyal to their hierarchy, their existence is deeply tied to the technological advancements that Cawl has manipulated for his own purposes. Another key force in this intricate web is the Black Templars, a chapter of the Adeptus Astartes known for their zealous devotion to the Emperor and their unwavering hatred of anything that strays from humanity's purity. Their views on Cawl's creations are rigid and unforgiving, as they do not tolerate deviations from what they consider the Emperor's intended order. On the other side of the spectrum are the Ultramarines, one of the Imperium's most disciplined and influential Space Marine chapters. Their pragmatic approach to warfare and governance has led them to be among those most willing to accept Cawl's works. Unlike other chapters which remain skeptical, they see his advancements as a means to strengthen the Imperium's forces. Another shadow that looms over Cawl is the Officio Assassinorum, the Imperium's secretive executioners. They operate outside the constraints of conventional warfare, eliminating threats deemed too dangerous to be allowed to exist. While their attention has not fully fallen upon Cawl, their involvement is never far when individuals amass power beyond what is considered acceptable. Cawl's story also extends beyond the Imperium itself. Forces outside humanity's dominion have taken notice of his actions, though their motivations remain unclear. Among them are those who see knowledge as the ultimate weapon, and should Cawl's advancements continue unchecked, they may take steps to ensure his influence does not spread further. Each of these forces plays a role in the events surrounding Cawl, whether as allies, enemies, or cautious observers. His existence alone disrupts the established order, and as his actions continue to shape the future, those involved must decide whether to embrace his vision or seek to stop it before it goes too far. The foundations for the events surrounding Belisarius Cawl were laid long before his rise to prominence. The Imperium of Man, despite its immense scale and power, has always struggled with a fundamental contradiction. Its survival depends on technology, yet true innovation is forbidden. This paradox has defined the Adeptus Mechanicus since its inception, shaping its rigid doctrines and limiting the development of new advancements. Over thousands of years, the Imperium has relied on the remnants of ancient knowledge, treating lost technology as sacred artifacts rather than tools for progress. This stagnation, enforced by the religious dogma of Mars, ensured that even the most brilliant minds were bound by laws that made true scientific progress nearly impossible. The roots of this crisis trace back to the distant past, when mankind once reached the heights of technological supremacy. During a period of expansion and discovery, humanity developed machines and artificial intelligences beyond anything seen in the modern age. However, this golden era collapsed in a cataclysmic event that led to the near-total loss of technological knowledge. In its aftermath, the remnants of civilization clung to what little they could salvage, and a new doctrine emerged, one that treated technology as something to be preserved rather than understood. Over time, this philosophy became law, enforced by a priesthood that worshipped machines rather than studied them. With the establishment of the Imperium, the Adeptus Mechanicus was granted autonomy, operating as both a religious order and the primary technological authority. In exchange for its allegiance, Mars was given control over the Imperium's technological resources, a monopoly that allowed it to dictate what could be studied and what was forbidden. The result was an empire locked in an endless cycle of repetition, dependent on ancient relics whose inner workings were no longer comprehended. Even the construction of new war machines followed strict templates, with deviation considered heretical. This doctrine ensured stability, but it also meant that humanity was increasingly vulnerable to external threats that continued to evolve. As the centuries passed, the Imperium faced mounting crises that tested the limits of its technological stagnation. Wars erupted against foes that wielded weapons and strategies beyond what the Imperium could counter effectively. The loss of knowledge from previous eras became increasingly evident, as even the most powerful war machines began to deteriorate beyond repair. With every passing millennium, the Imperium was forced to rely on desperate measures to maintain its military strength, often resorting to rediscovering lost technology rather than creating something new. This struggle to preserve what little remained created tension within the Mechanicus itself. Some sought to uphold tradition at all costs, while others quietly questioned whether the Imperium's rigid laws were sustainable. As conflicts intensified, the limits of human warriors became apparent. Despite their skill and resilience, the Imperium's armies faced enemies that adapted, evolved, and exploited weaknesses in the Imperium's strategies. While the forces of Mars continued to produce weapons and armor according to ancient blueprints, they were increasingly outmatched by the technological advancements of their adversaries. The need for more powerful warriors, stronger armor, and more efficient combat doctrines became undeniable. Yet every attempt to push beyond the established order was met with resistance from those who saw change as a direct threat to their beliefs. The situation reached a breaking point when one of the Imperium's greatest defenders fell, leaving a void in leadership and creating an existential crisis. With its guiding force removed, the Imperium was left fractured and vulnerable, struggling to hold itself together against an ever-growing list of enemies. In this moment of uncertainty, the question of whether to embrace change or continue clinging to outdated traditions became impossible to ignore. This was the backdrop against which the actions of Belisarius Cawl took shape. He did not emerge in isolation, but rather as a response to an Imperium that was on the brink of collapse. While others within the Mechanicus adhered strictly to their ancient doctrines, Cawl operated on a different level. Unlike his peers, he had spent centuries accumulating knowledge far beyond what was permitted. He understood the dangers of stagnation and recognized that without intervention, the Imperium would continue its slow decline toward oblivion. The groundwork for his eventual rise had already been laid by centuries of secrecy, hidden research, and technological preservation. Over countless years, he gathered fragments of lost knowledge, piecing together advancements that had been buried under layers of religious dogma. While others feared the consequences of defying established laws, he saw them as obstacles to be bypassed. His work was not the product of sudden inspiration, but rather the culmination of centuries of preparation, conducted in the shadows of an Imperium that refused to acknowledge the need for change. The forces that shaped his path were not limited to the Imperium alone. Beyond its borders, new threats emerged that forced a re-evaluation of the Imperium's existing military doctrines. While Mars continued to produce weapons from blueprints that were thousands of years old, enemies adapted, creating weapons that nullified the Imperium's once unshakable advantages. As entire sectors burned and the Imperium's defenses were stretched to their limits, the need for something beyond conventional means became undeniable. It was under these conditions that Cawl's work became more than just a theoretical pursuit. While others fought to preserve what little remained, he sought to reshape the Imperium's approach to war, even if it meant breaking the very laws that had governed technological progress for thousands of years. The tension between those who embraced tradition and those who saw the necessity of change became the defining struggle that set the stage for everything that followed. These factors converged into a single undeniable truth. The Imperium could not continue along its current path without suffering irreversible decline. The moment for change had arrived, but whether the Imperium was ready for it was another question entirely. Belisarius Cawl had spent centuries preparing for this moment. The only question that remained was how far he was willing to go, and whether the Imperium would survive the consequences of his ambition. Belisarius Cawl's actions did not unfold in isolation, but rather across centuries of careful planning, secret experimentation, and a relentless pursuit of knowledge that defied the established order. His work was a gradual process, shaped by countless hidden endeavors and significant moments that altered the course of the Imperium's history. Though his name remained obscure for much of his existence, the consequences of his research and manipulations would ultimately ripple across the entire galaxy. The first known stages of his work began deep within the forge worlds of the Adeptus Mechanicus, where he operated under the strict veil of secrecy. While others followed rigid doctrines, Cawl delved into the lost knowledge of the past, gathering fragments of technology that had been buried for thousands of years. His research extended beyond what was considered acceptable, reaching into the realms of forbidden sciences and experimental augmentation. Unlike his peers, who revered the remnants of ancient technology as sacred relics, he sought to rebuild and improve upon them, unearthing discoveries that had long been thought impossible. Over the centuries, Cawl established numerous hidden facilities across the Imperium, each dedicated to different aspects of his research. These locations ranged from isolated forge worlds to deep space installations beyond the prying eyes of the Mechanicus. He surrounded himself with a network of servitors, machines, and modified assistants, many of whom were augmented beyond recognition. While most tech priests adhered to their designated roles within the hierarchy of Mars, Cawl was unbound by such constraints. His mind operated across multiple consciousness streams, allowing him to pursue countless projects simultaneously. His work was not without opposition. The Mechanicus, ever watchful for deviation from established protocols, viewed certain aspects of his research with growing suspicion. Yet Cawl was adept at maintaining a delicate balance, presenting just enough progress to appease those who questioned him while keeping the true extent of his discoveries hidden. He maintained alliances with those who could shield him from scrutiny, ensuring that his most ambitious projects remained undiscovered. As time progressed, Cawl's knowledge expanded beyond the confines of the Mechanicus. He did not limit himself to the archives of Mars, but sought information from sources long considered forbidden. He pursued the remnants of lost human civilizations, scoured derelict void stations for forgotten technologies, and studied devices of unknown origin. His relentless pursuit of advancement led him to acquire knowledge that should have been beyond any single individual's grasp, yet he wielded it with purpose. The turning point that brought Cawl into the spotlight was not of his own making, but rather a consequence of greater events that shook the Imperium to its core. While he had operated in the shadows for centuries, the growing instability of the Imperium forced him to accelerate his plans. The sheer scale of the conflicts erupting across the galaxy demanded more than what the Imperium's stagnant military doctrines could provide. Recognizing the looming crisis, Cawl unveiled projects that had been in development for thousands of years, revealing advancements that would reshape the future of warfare. Among his most significant contributions was a new form of warrior, one designed to surpass existing combat forces in every way. This creation, long in the making, would serve as the foundation for a military force capable of countering the threats that had steadily grown beyond the Imperium's ability to contain. However, the implications of such a project extended far beyond the battlefield. It was not merely an advancement in military capability. It was a direct challenge to the established beliefs of both the Mechanicus and the wider Imperium. The revelation of Cawl's work sent shockwaves through the Mechanicus, the Inquisition, and the highest echelons of power. While some recognized the necessity of his advancements, others saw them as a violation of sacred principles. The divide between those who supported his work and those who sought to suppress it became increasingly apparent. Accusations of heresy followed, as factions within the Imperium debated whether his actions were a necessary evolution or a dangerous deviation. Despite resistance, Cawl continued to push forward. He deployed his creations where they were needed most, ensuring that their effectiveness could not be ignored. He remained largely autonomous, refusing to submit to the authority of those who sought to control him. His mind, enhanced by countless modifications, allowed him to anticipate the movements of his adversaries, ensuring that his work could not be easily undone. As his influence grew, so did the number of those who sought to understand his true intentions. His vast network of research stations and hidden installations ensured that even if one project was uncovered, dozens more remained concealed. His ability to manipulate events from the shadows became a defining aspect of his existence, allowing him to operate beyond the reach of those who wished to see him silenced. The ramifications of Cawl's actions extended far beyond the immediate consequences of his creations. His research laid the groundwork for technological advancements that had not been seen in millennia. His defiance of tradition challenged the very foundations of the Imperium, forcing even its most rigid institutions to confront the reality that survival required change. Whether seen as a revolutionary or a heretic, his work ensured that the Imperium would never be the same again. Yet even as his contributions reshaped the course of history, the true extent of his knowledge and ambitions remained shrouded in mystery. While others speculated on the full scope of his research, only he knew the depths of what he had uncovered. The path he had set in motion would continue to unfold, with consequences that had yet to be fully realized. The moment of transformation arrived not through gradual acceptance, but through an act that defied every law the Adeptus Mechanicus held sacred. After centuries of operating in secrecy, manipulating knowledge, and subtly guiding events, Belisarius Cawl made a decision that would change the course of history. He chose to reveal a creation that went beyond mere technological advancement. It was a complete restructuring of one of the Imperium's most foundational pillars. This was not an incremental improvement, nor was it a rediscovered relic of the past. It was something new, something that had not been seen before. And with it, Cawl shattered the illusion that the Imperium could continue to survive without evolution. The decision was not made in haste. It was the culmination of thousands of years of research, experimentation, and concealed preparation. The path leading to this moment had been carefully orchestrated, each step taken with meticulous precision. He had ensured that when the time came, there would be no way to turn back. The mechanisms were already in motion, and whether the Imperium was ready or not, the change he had engineered would unfold. For centuries, Cawl had quietly gathered the necessary components: genetic material, cybernetic enhancements, and a deep understanding of the biological and mechanical fusion that defined humanity's most formidable warriors. He had perfected processes that others would have deemed impossible, blending technologies in ways that violated every doctrine of the cult Mechanicus. He had forged something that no one else would have dared to conceive, something that was not merely a refinement of the past, but a new blueprint for the future. The act of unveiling his work was a deliberate challenge to the existing order. He did not ask for permission. He did not seek approval. Instead, he presented his creation as a necessity, a solution to a problem that had long been ignored. It was an assertion that survival outweighed tradition, that the Imperium could no longer afford to cling to stagnation while threats grew beyond its ability to counter. The response was immediate and divided. There were those who recognized the necessity of what he had done, understanding that without such a shift, the Imperium would continue its slow decline. But there were others who saw it as an unforgivable violation, a betrayal of the sacred order that had governed humanity for thousands of years. The Adeptus Mechanicus, long bound by its rigid doctrines, could not reconcile the reality that one of its own had broken the very laws that defined its existence. The consequences of his decision could not be undone. What had been revealed could not be erased. The Imperium was now forced to confront a reality it had spent millennia denying. Cawl had not merely pushed the boundaries, he had torn them apart, demonstrating that the past was no longer enough to sustain the present. His actions forced a reckoning, a moment in which the Imperium had to decide whether to reject or embrace the future he had created. Despite resistance, despite accusations of heresy and violation, his work could not be dismissed. The sheer effectiveness of his creation ensured that it could not be ignored. It was a gamble, a risk that could have led to his eradication, yet he had calculated every possible outcome. He had ensured that by the time his work was unveiled, there would be no alternative. The Imperium could not afford to reject what he had done. This moment was not the conclusion of his story, but the moment in which everything changed. The foundations had been shattered, and there was no turning back. Whatever would follow, whether condemnation or acceptance, was irrelevant to Cawl himself. He had done what was necessary. The future of the Imperium would never be the same. The consequences of Belisarius Cawl's actions rippled across the Imperium with staggering force. What had once been considered immutable tradition was now called into question, and the reactions varied from desperate acceptance to outright rejection. Every corner of the Imperium was affected, from the highest halls of power to the farthest reaches of war-torn space. His work did not merely alter military doctrine. It forced an ideological reckoning, shaking the foundations of the Imperium's governance, faith, and survival strategies. The Adeptus Mechanicus was thrown into turmoil. For an institution that had rigidly enforced its doctrines for millennia, the revelation of Cawl's advancements was an existential crisis. There had always been those within its ranks who suspected him of delving too deeply into restricted knowledge, but few had anticipated the scale of his defiance. The strict hierarchy of Mars struggled to reconcile the reality of what had been presented. Some saw it as a necessary evolution, arguing that the Mechanicus had no choice but to adapt if the Imperium was to endure. Others considered it outright heresy, a violation of the most sacred tenets that upheld their existence. While certain Forge worlds embraced the new direction, others recoiled in defiance, refusing to acknowledge that such developments were even possible, let alone acceptable. This divide did not remain confined to internal debates. Across the Imperium, power struggles intensified as factions clashed over whether Cawl's work should be fully embraced or purged. Those who saw his creations as vital to the Imperium's continued existence pushed for their widespread implementation, while those bound by the old ways sought to limit their influence. This conflict was not limited to words. Assassinations, sabotage, and outright military actions erupted in places where resistance was strongest. The old order could not coexist peacefully with what Cawl had introduced. For the warriors of the Imperium, the impact was undeniable. A force that had long been trapped within the limits of outdated technology was now given access to advancements not seen in thousands of years. The battlefield changed as new strategies emerged, new formations were tested, and new warriors took their place on the front lines. These developments granted the Imperium a crucial advantage in conflicts that had previously seemed unwinnable. Battles that would have once ended in catastrophe now had a chance of victory, and enemies that had adapted to the Imperium's predictable methods were forced to reevaluate their approach. However, with every advantage came new tensions. Many among the Imperium's most hardened forces viewed Cawl's work with suspicion. Some refused to incorporate his advancements, believing them to be tainted by knowledge that should have remained buried. Others saw them as a necessary evil, tools to be used but never fully trusted. The divide between those who accepted the changes and those who rejected them created friction on a scale rarely seen within the Imperium's military structure. The Inquisition, the ever-watchful enforcers of imperial law, could not ignore the implications of what had been revealed. Cawl's actions forced them to re-examine long-held doctrines, and many among their ranks debated whether he should be eliminated before his influence spread too far. While some factions within the Inquisition argued that his work was essential to the Imperium's continued survival, others saw him as a direct threat to the very order they were sworn to protect. Covert investigations intensified, and while no official judgment was rendered, there were those who sought to ensure that Cawl's unchecked ambition did not lead to even greater transgressions. Outside the Imperium's own borders, the reaction was just as profound. The enemies of mankind, long accustomed to exploiting the Imperium's stagnation, took notice of the sudden shift in its capabilities. Strategies that had once proven effective against Imperial forces were no longer as reliable. Wars that had seemed destined for Imperial defeat became prolonged conflicts as the balance of power shifted in ways that had not been anticipated. Some adversaries viewed these changes as a mere anomaly, believing that the Imperium's rigid nature would prevent any true adaptation. Others recognized the danger posed by these advancements and sought to counter them before they could spread further. Despite the chaos, one fact remained indisputable. The Imperium had changed. Whether for better or worse, Cawl's work had irreversibly altered the course of history. The old ways could not be restored, no matter how fiercely some fought to maintain them. The mechanisms of power, technology, and warfare had been forced into motion, and no force, not even the most fanatical defenders of tradition, could halt the transformation that had begun. As the Imperium struggled to reconcile this new reality, Cawl himself remained elusive. He had no interest in debates over the legitimacy of his work, nor did he seek validation from those who questioned his methods. His focus was elsewhere, already anticipating the next step, already considering the next innovation that would challenge the Imperium's understanding of its own existence. While others wrestled with the implications of what he had done, he had already moved forward, his mind set on the possibilities that lay beyond what had already been revealed. Among the many controversies surrounding Belisarius Cawl, one of the most widely discussed topics within the Warhammer 40k community is the true extent of his knowledge and how he acquired it. The Adeptus Mechanicus operates under strict doctrines that forbid innovation, yet Cawl has demonstrated an understanding of technology that far surpasses even the most revered Magi of Mars. His ability to create entirely new systems, his access to knowledge long thought lost, and his capacity for independent thought set him apart from his peers. These aspects raise fundamental questions. How did he gain such extensive understanding? What sources of knowledge has he tapped into? And most disturbingly, has he gone too far? One of the most debated aspects of Cawl is the nature of his consciousness. Unlike the majority of tech priests who undergo extensive cybernetic augmentation but retain a singular mind, Cawl operates on a completely different level. His mind is not just enhanced, it is multiplied. Over thousands of years, he has constructed an internal network of data repositories, cognitive subprocessors, and parallel thought systems that function independently, yet contribute to a collective whole. This allows him to conduct countless experiments, analyze vast amounts of information, and anticipate outcomes far beyond what any normal intelligence could achieve. It is unclear whether he still possesses anything resembling a singular consciousness or if he has become something entirely new, a gestalt entity that exists beyond human understanding. This leads to another unsettling question. Is Belisarius Cawl still an individual, or has he transformed into something fundamentally different from humanity? His continued survival across millennia, combined with his ability to compartmentalize his thoughts and store memories in ways no other tech priest has achieved, suggests that he may no longer be bound by conventional definitions of identity. Some speculate that he has fragmented himself across multiple locations, existing simultaneously in different places through a network of thought-sharing constructs. If true, this would mean that even if one instance of Cawl were destroyed, his knowledge and essence would persist elsewhere, making him functionally immortal in a way no other member of the Adeptus Mechanicus has achieved. Another widely discussed aspect of Cawl is his defiance of the sacred tenets of the machine cult, particularly his willingness to use knowledge that is considered forbidden. The Mechanicus strictly adheres to the belief that only the technology of the past is holy, and any attempt to innovate is a violation of the machine god's will. However, Cawl has not only ignored this restriction, he has outright shattered it. His developments are not rediscoveries of lost knowledge, but entirely new creations, blending principles from multiple sources in ways that should be impossible within the framework of the cult Mechanicus. This raises further questions. Where is he getting his information? Does he possess archives that predate the current age? And if so, who or what provided him with access to such knowledge? A particularly concerning theory is that Cawl's understanding of technology might extend beyond the confines of humanity. His capacity to create advancements that even the most powerful figures within the Mechanicus struggle to comprehend suggests that he may have drawn from sources outside the Imperium. This fuels speculation that he has encountered technologies or artifacts from civilizations long erased from history. If this is true, then the implications are staggering. Cawl may have integrated knowledge from places and entities the Imperium would deem heretical. The consequences of such a revelation would be catastrophic, as the Imperium has always maintained a strict policy of destroying anything that does not conform to its rigid structures. If the truth were ever revealed, even his greatest allies might turn against him. Another unique element of Cawl's work is his approach to artificial intelligence, a subject strictly outlawed by the Imperium. The dangers of synthetic intelligence are deeply ingrained in the Mechanicus's beliefs, stemming from ancient wars that nearly destroyed mankind. Despite this, Cawl operates with a level of machine autonomy that verges dangerously close to breaking these laws. His constructs, assistants, and even elements of his own mind function with a degree of independence that should not be possible under the Imperium's strictures. While he insists that his creations do not violate these prohibitions, there are lingering doubts about the true nature of his constructs. Some believe that he may have found ways to bypass restrictions against artificial thought, crafting systems that technically obey the letter of the law while violating its intent. Perhaps the most controversial and widely debated aspect of Cawl's existence is his ultimate agenda. While many of his actions can be justified as necessary for the Imperium's survival, there remains an underlying sense of unease about his true intentions. He does not adhere to the established hierarchy of the Mechanicus, nor does he demonstrate the same reverence for the Imperium's traditions. Instead, he operates with an agenda that is entirely his own, answering to no one and shaping events in ways that cannot be easily predicted. His willingness to break every rule suggests that he does not see himself as bound by the same limitations as others. This has led to speculation that his endgame may not align with the Imperium's interests at all. Despite the debates and uncertainty surrounding him, one fact remains clear. Belisarius Cawl has forever altered the landscape of the Imperium. His actions have set events in motion that cannot be undone, and whether he is a savior or a threat, his influence is undeniable. The mystery of his knowledge, his consciousness, and his true purpose continues to fuel speculation, and as long as he remains active, the questions surrounding him will persist. What he has already revealed is significant, but what remains hidden may be even more critical to the future of the Imperium. Among the many figures who have shaped the trajectory of Belisarius Cawl's work, several individuals stand out for their direct influence, opposition, or uneasy alliance with the tech priest who refuses to obey the laws of his own order. These figures represent the varied perspectives on Cawl, some viewing him as a savior, others as a reckless heretic, and a few as an unpredictable force whose true motives remain unclear. Each of them has played a role in either enabling or resisting his actions, and their own strengths and weaknesses have shaped the outcomes of his ambitions. One of the most significant individuals who has interacted with Cawl is a warrior whose pragmatism outweighs blind adherence to tradition. Unlike many others in positions of power, this figure does not view Cawl's work solely through the lens of heresy or dogma, but rather as a means to an end. Their approach to leadership is defined by practicality, an understanding that stagnation leads to defeat, and a willingness to use whatever resources are necessary to secure victory. However, this same pragmatism makes them vulnerable to manipulation. While they may see Cawl as a valuable tool, they do not fully understand the depths of his knowledge or the long-term consequences of allowing him to operate unchecked. Their greatest strength is their ability to adapt to changing circumstances, but their greatest weakness is an underestimation of just how far Cawl's ambitions extend beyond the immediate crises they seek to resolve. In contrast, another key figure stands as one of the staunchest defenders of tradition. They are bound by an unshakable belief in the established order and see Cawl as a direct threat to the stability of the Imperium. Unlike many who fear what they do not understand, this individual possesses a deep comprehension of the consequences of unrestrained technological experimentation. Their expertise in matters of doctrine and law gives them the authority to challenge Cawl's actions on a level beyond mere religious zealotry. Their greatest strength is their unwavering commitment to upholding the structure of the Imperium, ensuring that its institutions do not fracture under the weight of reckless innovation. However, this same rigidity blinds them to the realities of a changing galaxy. Their refusal to consider alternatives, even in the face of mounting evidence that the old ways may no longer be sufficient, leaves them vulnerable to being outmaneuvered by those who do not share their strict adherence to the past. Another notable figure is one who operates in the shadows, watching Cawl's every move with a mix of fascination and suspicion. They are not aligned with either side of the debate surrounding his work, but instead serve their own agenda, carefully analyzing whether his advancements pose a greater threat than the dangers they were meant to counter. Unlike others who see Cawl as either a necessary evil or an unrepentant heretic, this individual recognizes the complexity of his actions and seeks to uncover the full extent of his true objectives. Their greatest strength lies in their ability to remain unseen, gathering intelligence and influencing events without revealing their own hand. However, their weakness comes from their inability to act decisively. By the time they uncover the full scope of Cawl's plans, it may already be too late to stop them. One of the more enigmatic individuals connected to Cawl is an adversary whose knowledge rivals his own. Unlike the dogmatic opposition he faces from the Mechanicus, this individual challenges him on a purely intellectual level, recognizing the true implications of his work in ways that others cannot. They understand not just the technological advancements he has introduced, but also the long-term ramifications of his willingness to break every restriction placed upon knowledge. Their strength is their ability to see beyond the immediate conflicts of the present, anticipating the ways in which Cawl's innovations could reshape not only the Imperium, but the balance of power in the galaxy itself. However, their greatest flaw is their own arrogance. They believe that their understanding gives them control over the situation, failing to account for Cawl's unpredictability and the extent to which he has already accounted for their interference. There is also a figure within the Adeptus Mechanicus itself who serves as both a rival and an ideological counterpoint to Cawl. Unlike many within the cult Mechanicus, they do not dismiss the potential of new discoveries outright. However, they believe that Cawl's methods are reckless, lacking the necessary caution required when dealing with knowledge that has been forbidden for a reason. Their approach to technological progress is measured, ensuring that advancements are thoroughly tested and understood before being implemented. Their strength lies in their ability to bridge the gap between tradition and innovation, advocating for controlled progress rather than blind adherence to the past. However, their downfall is their failure to recognize that the bureaucracy of the Mechanicus makes such an approach nearly impossible. While they seek balance, Cawl has already moved beyond the constraints of their measured pace, ensuring that by the time they present their carefully controlled advancements, he will have already reshaped the battlefield in ways they can no longer influence. Another individual closely tied to Cawl's story is one whose loyalty is not to the Imperium or the Mechanicus, but to something older and more deeply ingrained. They view Cawl's defiance as a fundamental violation of laws that should never have been challenged, and their actions are driven not by politics or military necessity, but by an unshakable belief that certain knowledge must remain buried. Their greatest strength is their sheer conviction, an unwillingness to compromise that makes them relentless in their pursuit of what they see as justice. However, their weakness is their inability to adapt. Where Cawl sees possibilities, they see only dangers, and their refusal to acknowledge the shifting reality of the Imperium makes them increasingly isolated from those who would otherwise be their allies. Finally, there is one figure whose role in Cawl's story remains largely unknown, but whose influence is undeniable. They are not a direct opponent or supporter, but rather an entity that Cawl himself has acknowledged in cryptic statements. Whether they are a mentor, a source of knowledge, or something else entirely is a matter of speculation, but their presence looms over the events surrounding him. If they are still active, their intentions remain unclear. Whether they seek to guide him toward a specific goal or ensure that his knowledge is never fully realized is a question that remains unanswered. Each of these individuals plays a role in the unfolding consequences of Cawl's work, whether through opposition, reluctant cooperation, or secretive observation. They shape the ongoing struggle between those who seek to preserve the Imperium as it is and those who recognize that survival demands something more. Their strengths and flaws define how they respond to the challenges presented by a mind that refuses to accept limits, and in doing so, they determine not only Cawl's fate, but the fate of the Imperium itself. Among the many mysteries surrounding Belisarius Cawl, several questions remain unresolved, fueling endless speculation and debate within the Warhammer 40K community. His technological prowess, his extensive knowledge, and his long-term ambitions suggest that there is far more to his existence than what has been revealed. While some of his work is known, the deeper implications of his actions remain shrouded in uncertainty, whether due to deliberate secrecy or a lack of clear answers. These mysteries continue to raise concerns about what he truly represents. One of the most widely debated topics is the sheer scale of Cawl's knowledge. The Adeptus Mechanicus is infamous for its slow, bureaucratic approach to technology, hoarding information rather than seeking to understand it. Yet Cawl operates with a level of intelligence and creativity that should be impossible under the restrictions imposed by his order. His ability to develop advancements in multiple fields, genetics, cybernetics, energy manipulation, and artificial intelligence, suggests that he possesses archives of knowledge far beyond what even the most powerful magi of Mars have access to. The question remains, where did he obtain such information? While he has claimed to have spent thousands of years accumulating knowledge, many suspect that his sources go beyond what should be available to any member of the Mechanicus. Another major mystery is the nature of Cawl's mind. Unlike others of his kind, he appears to function on a completely different cognitive level, capable of processing countless complex thoughts simultaneously. Some speculate that he has transferred his consciousness across multiple systems, effectively creating copies of himself to operate in different locations at once. Others believe that he has augmented his brain to such an extent that he no longer thinks in a way that can be classified as human. If this is true, the implications are unsettling. Has Cawl ascended beyond mortal limitations, or has he become something entirely separate from what he once was? If his mind has been fragmented across multiple instances, is he still a singular entity, or has he become a collective intelligence composed of different versions of himself? One of the most controversial theories concerns Cawl's long-term plans. While he has introduced significant technological advancements to the Imperium, it is unclear what his ultimate goal is. Unlike most figures within the Adeptus Mechanicus, he does not seem to be driven by blind devotion to the machine god, nor does he adhere to the standard hierarchy of Mars. Instead, he operates according to his own agenda, which remains largely hidden. Some believe that he is simply preparing the Imperium for a new era of warfare, ensuring its survival through technological superiority. Others, however, suspect that his ambitions extend far beyond what he has revealed. If he has spent millennia gathering knowledge, what else has he prepared that has yet to be unveiled? Is he following a plan of his own design, one that even the highest authorities within the Imperium are unaware of? A related mystery is the true extent of his modifications to the genetic structure of certain warriors. While his work has been presented as a means to strengthen the Imperium's forces, there are concerns that his changes go beyond what is publicly acknowledged. His ability to manipulate genetics on a fundamental level suggests that he may have implemented alterations that serve purposes beyond what he has stated. This raises the question: has he introduced hidden modifications that could one day be activated for reasons unknown? If so, what is the trigger for such an event, and does he alone possess the ability to control it? Another point of speculation revolves around the artifacts and technologies he has recovered. It is known that he has explored lost ruins, abandoned research facilities, and derelict void stations in search of knowledge. However, the full scope of what he has discovered remains undisclosed. Some fear that he may have encountered things that should never have been found, forbidden technologies that could alter the balance of power in ways the Imperium is unprepared for. If he has acquired artifacts that exceed human understanding, has he truly mastered them, or is he merely tampering with forces beyond his control? Perhaps the most unsettling question concerns whether Cawl himself can still be considered loyal. While his actions have undeniably strengthened the Imperium, his willingness to ignore its most sacred laws suggests that he does not see himself as bound by its authority. He answers to no one, operating in the shadows and revealing his work only when it suits him. If he has spent thousands of years shaping events from behind the scenes, what else has he influenced? Does he see himself as a servant of the Imperium, or is he something else entirely, a force that has been acting independently all along? If his goals ever come into conflict with those of the Imperium, what would he choose? Finally, there is the question of what he has not yet revealed. While his advancements have already reshaped the battlefield, it is widely believed that he has far more knowledge hidden away, waiting for the right moment to be unveiled. Given his track record, it is unlikely that he has shown everything he is capable of. This leads to speculation about what he is still withholding. Has he developed weapons, genetic enhancements, or other technologies that he has deemed too dangerous to reveal? If so, what conditions would need to arise for him to finally unveil them? These mysteries define the ongoing discussions surrounding Belisarius Cawl. While he has provided answers to some questions, every revelation only leads to more uncertainty. His knowledge, his mind, his motives, and his ultimate goals remain largely unknown, ensuring that speculation about his true nature will continue. Whether he is the key to the Imperium's salvation or the architect of something far more dangerous is a question that may not be answered until it is too late. One of the greatest mysteries surrounding Belisarius Cawl is the true extent of his plans. While his advancements have been presented as necessary for the Imperium's survival, there are lingering concerns that his ultimate objectives remain undisclosed. His ability to develop new technologies and bypass the restrictions of the Adeptus Mechanicus suggests that he is working toward something beyond the immediate crises the Imperium faces. This raises an unsettling question. Is Cawl merely reacting to the challenges of the present, or has he been following a hidden agenda for centuries, one that even his supposed allies are unaware of? A major point of speculation is whether Cawl has deliberately designed contingencies that only he understands. The technology he has introduced, the modifications he has made, and the sheer scale of his research suggest that he may have embedded safeguards or hidden functions within his work, capabilities that have yet to be activated. If this is true, what is the trigger for these hidden mechanisms? Could he have built something into his creations that will only become apparent under specific conditions? The possibility that he has introduced long-term changes that even the highest authorities in the Imperium do not fully comprehend fuels concerns about what else he has yet to reveal. Another unresolved question is the nature of his knowledge storage. While many within the Adeptus Mechanicus rely on ancient data vaults and archived schematics, Cawl seems to possess a repository of information far beyond what should be available. It is widely believed that he has accessed restricted or lost records, but the sheer breadth of his understanding suggests something even more profound. Does he possess a system capable of recording and processing knowledge in ways that others cannot? Some theories suggest that he may have developed a method to store and retrieve information outside the known frameworks of Imperial technology, possibly creating a vast digital consciousness that operates independently of his physical form. If this is true, what would happen if such a system were compromised or taken from him? A deeply controversial theory is whether Cawl has created something beyond human understanding, an intelligence that exists outside the traditional boundaries of organic or mechanical thought. The Imperium has strict prohibitions against artificial intelligence, yet some suspect that his research may have strayed into dangerous territory. If he has developed an autonomous cognitive system that operates at a level beyond human or machine intellect, what implications does this have for the future? Could such an entity already be influencing his decisions, guiding his work in directions that even he does not fully control? If Cawl has indeed crossed this line, it would represent one of the most significant violations of Imperial law in history. Another topic of discussion is the true scale of his laboratories and hidden research facilities. While many of his known installations have been uncovered, it is highly likely that a significant portion of his work remains concealed. Given his tendency to operate in secrecy, how many unknown locations house experiments and technologies that have yet to be revealed? Some believe that entire Forge worlds may be under his influence, working outside the control of the Adeptus Mechanicus. If these sites exist, what is being developed within them? The possibility that Cawl has been running large-scale experiments without oversight raises concerns about what other breakthroughs or disasters he may have already set in motion. A particularly unsettling possibility is that Cawl has been manipulating events on a far greater scale than previously understood. If he has been active for thousands of years, how many key moments in Imperial history have been influenced by his unseen hand? Has he subtly guided the course of events to prepare for a specific outcome? If so, what is that outcome, and does it align with the goals of the Imperium, or is he working towards something entirely separate? His ability to act beyond the constraints of conventional governance means that his influence may extend far beyond what has been officially acknowledged. Another widely debated question is whether Cawl has discovered something about the fundamental nature of the Imperium that has shaped his actions. Given his access to forgotten knowledge and ancient records, has he uncovered truths that others remain unaware of? If so, what could those truths be? Has he learned something about the origins of Imperial technology that has driven him to act in ways that defy tradition? The possibility that he knows more about the Imperium's past, and perhaps its future, than even its highest authorities raises disturbing implications about what he might be preparing for. Finally, there is the question of whether Cawl will ever face consequences for his actions. While he has been permitted to continue his work due to the necessity of his advancements, his defiance of established laws has made him a figure of controversy. If his true objectives ever come into conflict with those who currently tolerate him, will he be declared an enemy of the Imperium? Or has he already ensured that he cannot be removed, having embedded himself so deeply into the Imperium's infrastructure that eliminating him would be more dangerous than allowing him to continue? These mysteries remain unresolved, leaving many to wonder just how much control Cawl truly has over the Imperium's future. His knowledge, his long-term objectives, and the hidden aspects of his work ensure that speculation about his true role will continue. Whether he is guiding humanity toward salvation or a fate yet unknown remains one of the most debated questions in the galaxy. The long-term consequences of Belisarius Cawl's work extend far beyond the immediate impact of his technological advancements. His defiance of established doctrine has already reshaped the Imperium's military, but the true ramifications of his actions have yet to fully unfold. The changes he has introduced, both in technology and in the way knowledge is treated, may mark the beginning of a shift that the Imperium is not prepared for. Whether this shift ultimately strengthens humanity or leads to unforeseen catastrophe remains uncertain, but one thing is clear: the Imperium will never be the same. One of the most significant potential outcomes is the slow erosion of the Adeptus Mechanicus control over technological progress. For millennia, the Mechanicus has maintained an iron grip on knowledge, ensuring that innovation is suppressed in favor of rigid adherence to ancient templates. Cawl's open defiance of these restrictions has demonstrated that advancement is possible, even within an institution built on stagnation. If his work continues to spread, it could inspire others within the Mechanicus to challenge established traditions, leading to internal divisions and potential fractures within its hierarchy. Some Forge worlds may follow Cawl's example, embracing research and development as a necessity for the Imperium's survival, while others may view such changes as outright heresy, leading to conflict between factions that were once united under a single doctrine. Beyond the Mechanicus, the introduction of new technology on a widespread scale could disrupt the balance of power within the Imperium itself. The military forces that have adopted Cawl's advancements now possess an edge that others lack, creating divisions between those who accept progress and those who refuse it. If certain forces continue to evolve while others remain bound by traditional doctrines, it could lead to a restructuring of the Imperium's military hierarchy. Some factions may see Cawl's technology as essential for maintaining dominance, while others may view its use as a dangerous deviation from the Emperor's intended path. This divide could result in ideological conflicts that weaken the Imperium from within, creating new sources of instability. Another possible consequence is the long-term impact of Cawl's genetic modifications. His work has already introduced fundamental changes to certain forces within the Imperium, but the true extent of these alterations may not be fully understood for centuries. If his genetic engineering has introduced unforeseen mutations or hidden features, these modifications could develop in unexpected ways over time. There is also the question of whether these changes will remain under control or if they will spiral beyond what Cawl intended. If his work has introduced permanent shifts in certain populations, the long-term effects could reshape the very nature of humanity within the Imperium. A more immediate concern is how the enemies of mankind will respond to the advancements Cawl has introduced. The Imperium's technological stagnation has, in some ways, been a stabilizing factor. While its enemies have developed new strategies, they have done so with the understanding that the Imperium's methods remain largely unchanged. The sudden introduction of new warfare capabilities could disrupt this balance, forcing adversaries to adapt at an accelerated pace. This could lead to an arms race in which the Imperium's enemies develop countermeasures that push warfare into an even more unpredictable and destructive state. While Cawl's advancements may provide a temporary advantage, they could also provoke responses that make future conflicts even more devastating. On a broader scale, Cawl's actions have the potential to challenge the very structure of Imperial governance. The Imperium functions on the principle of absolute obedience to established laws and traditions. By openly defying these laws and succeeding despite opposition, Cawl has proven that deviation from doctrine is not only possible, but in some cases, necessary. If others within the Imperium begin to question whether strict adherence to outdated laws is truly beneficial, it could lead to a gradual breakdown of the rigid structure that has held the Imperium together for thousands of years. While this could result in progress, it could just as easily lead to chaos, as factions within the Imperium struggle to define what is acceptable and what is not. There is also the question of what will happen if Cawl himself is removed from the equation. His knowledge and expertise are unparalleled, and while he has undoubtedly created contingency plans to ensure that his work continues, his absence could create uncertainty. If he is ever deemed too dangerous to be allowed to continue his work, attempts to eliminate him could trigger unpredictable consequences. His hidden laboratories, his data archives, and the projects he has not yet revealed may contain elements that others are not prepared to handle. If his work is suddenly left incomplete, it could create a technological void that leads to unforeseen crises. Perhaps the most profound consequence of Cawl's actions is the precedent they set for the future. He has proven that it is possible to challenge the restrictions that have defined the Imperium for millennia. This alone may inspire others to question the laws and traditions that govern every aspect of life in the Imperium. While some may see this as a path toward progress, others will undoubtedly see it as a dangerous disruption that must be crushed before it spreads too far. Whether the Imperium chooses to embrace or suppress the changes that Cawl has introduced, it will be forced to confront the reality that the old ways are no longer absolute. Ultimately, the long-term significance of Cawl's defiance cannot be fully predicted. His work may strengthen the Imperium's ability to endure, or it may introduce instabilities that accelerate its decline. His advancements may pave the way for a new era of human dominance, or they may create fractures that weaken humanity's unity. Regardless of what the future holds, one fact remains undeniable. The Imperium has been altered, and there is no returning to the way things were before. The question now is not whether change will continue, but whether the Imperium will be able to control it, or if it will be consumed by the consequences of what has already begun.